Hello, welcome to Lesson 10. We're on page 292 of 2013 Adobe Illustrator CC Classroom in a Book series. Last one was kind of tough, so we're going to get this. We're kind of blending colors and shapes. So how to keep things looking from so flat. So this is our end file, and it's looking pretty cool. So we're going to open up Start, and we're just going to reset Essentials to get kind of started back on over. And we're going to kind of rename this to gallery.ai. All right. Cool. So we're going to work with some gradients, and that's what we're starting. Gradients where one or more colors kind of fade into the other. You can do linear, radial. You can do all sorts of really cool things. And gradients are great to mimic depth, kind of have some different flows where colors blend into the other, kind of a cool tie-dye effect. You can do a lot of cool stuff with gradients. So right now we are going to go open up the gradient panel, window gradient. And there it is. And as you can see, right now it's a default black and white. So I'm going to just pull up the gradient tool there. Let me select something. Anyhow, so pull up the gradient tool. We have our color gradient there, gradient fill box. This is our fill in stroke box. This is if we want to reverse gradient. D is the gradient midpoint. So this is the midpoint, where if we're doing black to white, that would be middle gray. F is color stop, and this is also a color stop as well. G is the opacity, so how opaque it is. So if you want kind of a lighter, let's go in location, where it's located for that gradient. I is gradient type, so we have linear and radial. Linear is the line, radial centered out. Stroke gradient type, inside, outside, curved, whatever. Angle, aspect ratio, and delete stop. So we'll kind of get more into this information as well. So we're going to create and apply a linear gradient to a fill. So we're going to select the large yellow rectangle with the black border. So it is our selection tool. We're going to select this here. The background is filled with the yellow fill color, and the stroke is black, as shown. The fill and the stroke boxes are kind of mimicking fill, stroke. The default gradient is a black and white gradient. So we're going to click on the gradient fill box near the tool panel. And we're just going to kind of click there. And it's going to fill this in with a gradient there within our fill right there. So default is going to be black and white. But in the gradient panel that opens, double click the white leftmost gradient. So we're going to double click this right here. And it pulls up a color panel. So we can go into swatches, which we're going to do now. And we're going to select the reddest swatch named Wall 1, which is this one here. And notice the gradient change. And all right. So we're just going to click back here to get back out here. And we're double click on the black color on the right side of the slider. And this pulls up. And in the color panel that appears, click on the color button, which is the little paintbrush. And we're going to click on this menu to pull up the CMY color scale. And we're going to change the CMY colors to 50 cyan, 80 magenta, 70 yellow, and 80 key or black. And you notice this nice kind of gradient that appears. So next we're going to save this gradient within our swatches panel. Remember how we saved color swatches? We're going to do the same with gradients. So click on the gradient menu arrow right here. And it has a whole bunch of things, and we're going to click add to swatches. And then if you click on the swatches panel, we got one right there. And if we can't find it, we can always kind of do this to go to show gradient swatches to find the gradient swatches and show all swatches and just play around with it. So we're going to do the So with the rectangle still selected on the artboard, apply some of the different gradients by clicking on them on the swatch panel. So we're just going to kind of play around with the different ones to see what we have. So we have this one. Let's just look at only gradient swatches. So there's a couple different ones we can see how they look. And we're just going to go back to our original. You know, some have multiple colors, and we'll kind of do that. So we're going to click on the Show Swatch Kinds menu button at the bottom of the swatch panel, which is here. And we're going to go Show All Swatches. So everything is saved. And we're just going to do a Command S to save our progress. So the next part is we're on page 298, and we're adjusting the direction and angle of a gradient fill. So select the gradient tool panel in the tools panel. So this is right here, and you notice there's this line. And we've already kind of played around with this playing around with, what was it, that TV lesson. Yeah, we played around with the TV lesson a little bit. So we're kind of bringing that back on. Yeah, so we were working on the different wood grain pattern gradient. So we're going to position our pointer over the bar in the gradient. So we're going to position our pointer over here, and we have some kind of different annotators. There's left, right, and where the colors kind of interact. What we're going to do is shift click the top of rectangle and drag down to the bottom. So we're going to shift click and drag down. And now we've changed the direction of where it goes. Now when we hold on this shift, it kind of constrains to 45-degree angles. Practicing changing the gradient angle, so if we want to do that. So you notice how we have full color, but the gradient area is full. If we kind of go over, it has a very smooth line. Kind of very sharp. So what we're going to do is, once we've played around, we're going to do steps 3 again. Top down. And with the gradient tool, position the pointer at the small white square here. And right here, it should have a counterclockwise rotation. So we're going to rotate it to kind of move where the gradient goes. So we're actually going to move around. We can play around with different rotations. We're going to double click the gradient tool in the tools panel to get that exact measurement. And as you see, it pulls up right here. And we're going to change that angle to -90. Make sure it's linear, and everything else looks okay. So with the rectangle still selected within the artboard, we're going to object lock selection so we don't accidentally move it. Cool. So now we're going to apply gradients to strokes. Now strokes can be colors and patterns too, so don't think we can forget about them. So we're going to pull up our layers panel. We have a bunch of different stuff kind of going on. And we're going to select, so the gallery layer is toggled open, and we're going to select the painting sublayer. And we're going to make it visible. and make sure we're selected on it. With the selection tool, we're going to select on this white object right here. And we're going to change the fill color to the gradient swatch. So we're going to fill it there. It's going to match that color. But with the gradient tool in the tools panel, we're going to position the pointer over the top of the rectangle and we're going to drag down. We're going to actually change the swatch to painting background. Then with our tool panel, see this angle here, we're going to shift, drag down to the bottom of the rectangle to change the position and direction of the gradient. So we want it to go kind of to a vertical. Let me read this again. Position the pointer over the top of the selected rectangle and shift and drag down. So it has actually already done that for us. It says position the pointer over the top of the selected rectangle and shift, drag down to the bottom rectangle to change the position and direction of the gradient. So top to the bottom, yes, that's what it looks like. Release the mouse button and the gradient key. So what it looks like on page 300 is what we want. So we're going to change the stroke weight from 1 to 30. We're going to change the stroke color to a gradient swatched in black. Right there. And we're going to edit this gradient that's applied to it. So editing gradient on a stroke. So select on the gradient panel icon on the right side of the workspace to open up this gradient panel, which is actually already open. And we're going to drag a marquee across the upper right. So it wants us to use the zoom tool and kind of to zoom in over here, which we're zoomed in. So in the gradient panel, click the stroke box, which is this guy. And to edit the gradients, so leave the type as linear and click Apply Gradient across Stroke button, which is the last one right here. It changes the gradient type there. Make sure it's linear. We can apply a gradient to a stroke in 3 ways: within a stroke, along a stroke, or across a stroke. Drag the black color stop to the left. The location shows approximately 60%. So if we drag this over, and we're going to actually just type in 60, and that kind of gives that kind of depth of a frame look to it. So double click the white color stop and click the swatches button. So go to swatches, and we're going to click frame 1 swatch within the top color group. There we go. And click outside to accept it. Position the pointer over the color, below the color ramp between the 2 color stops. So right here, you notice there's a little plus sign. We're going to add another color stop. So double click that new color stop. And with swatches showing, click the light yellow swatch at the top of the panel. Right there. And as you can see in the top of page 301, what adding looks like. So, pressing the Alt or Option key, drag the yellow color closer to the right, closer to the black yellow color stop, release the mouse button. then release the modifier key. This is an easy way to duplicate a color in a gradient. So we're holding down Alt or Option, and we're just going to make it close. So 1, 2, 3, 4 colors going on. Double click, click below the color ramp between the two foremost left stops to add a final color stop. Double click, and we're going to name the swatch. It's going to be frame 2, which mine looks a little bit more red than the one that they have, which is totally fine. And we're going to deselect, zoom out, and do a save. So you see, our gradients that we added to the stroke have this nice little layeredness to it. And our next video, we're going to play around with some more gradients.